Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. In this programme, we're focusing on the situation in Myanmar. Our reporter Cyril Payam filed an exclusive report from there back in 2013, when Myanmar was in the infancy of its then very new democracy. But even then, there were signs that the generals might, at some point, seize power again. Cyril Payam was then our Southeast Asian correspondent. Now he's here in the studio with us. Cyril, I remember your report extremely well. Exclusive it was, and really revealing about the situation in Myanmar. What was it back then that told you that Myanmar would find itself once again under military control, that this democracy wouldn't last? What were the signs for you?
Well, Mark, we couldn't obviously predict the unbelievable nightmare which became a reality in a slap of a finger a few weeks ago when the country came back in 48 hours, 30 or 40 years back. But we were a few observers to be a bit cautious, at least at the most, or pessimistic about the risk we are taking the pro-democracy side, and especially Aung San Suu Kyi, by making a lot of compromise with the military. So we were a bit cautious at this point. This is why we did produce this film at this point. We were just a few to do that, and I would like to also take the occasion of rebroadcasting this film to dedicate it to the co-producer, Antar Nguyen, which is a Burmese journalist. He has been working with me for many years. He has been jailed and arrested, tortured on March 9, just after the coup, and he's going to be charged for 12 years just for being a journalist in the Myanmar of today. Let's think about your colleague, Antar Nguyen. Let's think about Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, under house arrest once again. Let's take a look at Cyril's film and more from Cyril afterwards.
This is a national parliamentary session, Myanmar style. These military officers are all participants in Myanmar's democratic transition. They may be MPs, but they were not elected. Everything is new here, including the presence of the regime's opponents, some of whom are very famous. The military has a second home here, with 25% of House seats reserved for soldiers, all directly appointed by the commander-in-chief.
Yes, it's happening. This is democracy. Soldiers have a duty to respect the will of the people. We decided to work together with all parties to develop the country's religious and ethnic harmony.
What do you do if the NLD wins?
It's hard to say.
We are in Naypyidaw, literally the abode of kings, the seat of power. A ghost city of 7,000 square kilometers, this isolated capital has no obvious center. It's divided into sectors for ministries, residences, and military installations. It's mandatory for state officials and legislators to live here.
If you do become the president, will you live in Naypyidaw? Isn't too boring if you compare with Rangoon?
I think it's a premature question.
Nobel Peace Prize winner and pro-democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi makes no secret of her presidential ambitions to help shape the destiny of a country in transition.
Don't you think that even living Naypyidaw is premature? Democracy is not too premature for Burma now?
I don't think democracy is premature for anybody.
Do you foresee that this parliament will be less green and more Euro color in the next future?
I don't think we should think of parliaments in terms of colours, but in terms of what it can do for the country.
The brisk response is typical of Aung San Suu Kyi's new persona. After more than 15 years under house arrest, cut off from the world, the Myanmarese heroine is now free. Free, but very cautious, as if her release was only conditional. For now, the opposition has just 6% of the parliament's 660 seats. The rest belong to the military and members of the old regime. 37 of the government's 46 cabinet ministers are from the Tamador, the military. The army remains everywhere. But the watchword in Naypyidaw today is national reconciliation. Here, there are no longer enemies, no past conflicts, only a common future.
I believe that Aung San Suu Kyi has a true love of her country, and that has made her a real politician. It's true she's changed her story. Now we're united, her and us, in our patriotism.
Indeed, everybody here has changed. These hundreds of visitors, all former military men, are officially now just regular members of the ruling party. The National League for Democracy is also entitled to its visitors. Kin Toon, an old companion of Aung San Suu Kyi's, has made the trip to Naypyidaw. A former bodyguard, he spent several years with her during her house arrest.
What I see here is not democracy. They haven't all been democratically elected. But you have to accept this compromise for a while.
It's within the walls of this artificial city, built in the middle of the jungle, where the leaders of the former junta enjoy a peaceful retreat, that the country's future is being decided. But at the gates of Parliament, it's back to a more recognizable Myanmarese reality.
This road is reserved for important people. That's why it's so big. Me, I just clean it.
These two brothers are also residents of Naypyidaw. They and their families live in a hut without electricity or water. Their parents were among the hundreds of thousands of Myanmaris who built the new capital.
I've been living here for 5 years. We don't have the money to leave. The brick houses are only for the official government employees, not for us.
Behind the curtains of this grand capital, a second-class community of workers struggles daily, excluded from the benefits on offer for state officials. It's nighttime in Naypyidaw. Everything is carefully structured and planned to the smallest detail. MPs are housed and grouped by political allegiances. The opposition and its modest 43 members occupy just one small street for now.
Hello, Uncle. I'm home, back from Rangoon. Is everything okay here?
This opposition MP is a veteran of Myanmar's long and bitter pro-democracy struggle.
It has already personally got, I must admit, but it is no alternative. For 60 years since our independence, we have been waiting for a leader like her. It's the first time. That's why, although I'm older than her, although I have more experience than her, I follow her leadership.
It's the second day of the parliamentary session, and Toon Kin, Aung San Suu Kyi's former bodyguard, is hoping for a reunion with the opposition leader, whom he hasn't seen for 10 years.
I'm sure she'll be able to convince the military of her good intentions. It will happen. They'll eventually get behind her, even the most conservative.
Many think that Aung San Suu Kyi will be the eventual winner of a power struggle taking place at the highest levels. But obstacles remain, and there is little sense of concern among members of the old regime. This veteran journalist has worked 30 years in state media at the new light of Myanmar, the dictatorship's propaganda machine.
There are two stars here, the military and Aung San Suu Kyi. It's good that they're sharing the work.
And you? What is your favorite?
Me? Yeah, I like it this way too.
Monjor is employed by the Ministry of Information. Of course, he covers parliamentary news, but he also has control over the accreditation of other journalists.
What is the difference between when you work for the New Light of Myanmar and now?
There were far fewer journalists before. It's good. We can discuss and share things.
In the parliament, Aung San Suu Kyi is never without her close entourage. And many of the faces are new. New methods, new friends, new protectors.
Interesting session today?
It's quite okay.
This young NLD MP is one of Myanmar's most famous hip-hop artists, whose political music once got him thrown into jail. It is his proximity to Aung San Suu Kyi that has opened the doors of the assembly to him.
When you truly believe in democracy and human rights, you can overcome all of the things. So for me, it's a little bit difficult, but it's easily to pass through it.
And it seems that the famous opposition leader also wants to move forward. But at what price? The closer Aung San Suu Kyi gets to power, the further away she seems to be from her oldest friends and the core of her party, if not yet her country. In Rangoon, we meet U Win Tin, co-founder of the NLD. He is Myanmar's most famous and oldest former political prisoner.
I think she should really, the party should know what she is doing and what she is intending and where she is going. But there are very few persons who really talk to her or talk in front of her, you see. That's the trouble.
We are heading back to where everything began, the historical headquarters of the National League for Democracy on Shui Gondang Road in the heart of Rangoon.
Actually, you see, we are not the rivals and we are not the divergent persons. We are very good term, and she regarded me as an old hand, and I regarded her as one who has to be regarded as the supreme leader. That's all.
But many of the NLD leader's oldest friends struggle to recognize her. It is as if there were two Aung San Suu Kyis.
In 1999, she was outspoken, she was very direct, she was hard-hitting, she didn't hesitate to criticize the authorities, the military. Now, she seems to be aloof and reserved and cold. Yeah, so far, the military has played his cards very well. They haven't lost anything, really. On the contrary, they just managed to retreat into the background. And now, who is talking about the military today? Everyone is talking about the 2015 election, about Aung San Suu Kyi, constitutional reform, the peace process. And meanwhile, the most powerful institution in the country is just off the radar.
It is the last day of the parliamentary session in Naypyidaw, a break for a few months. Aung San Suu Kyi is leaving for Rangoon. In a few days, she will be in Europe again to promote Myanmar's democratic transition.
You're always asking me questions. Go and ask somebody else.
What did you change in yourself during this time?
I think that's a most awkward question. How am I to know how I have changed in myself?
I mean your position, your
My
stance.
position, well now. My position, I'm now a member of the legislature. I was not before, and there are changes like that, of course, many external changes.
But what is your answer to people who say you actually change your strategy, your way of saying
I
the
think
world?
it's for you to decide whether or not my strategy has changed.
Aung San Suu Kyi is heading into the unknown, as is her country. Myanmar is passing through a new and untested period, a time of many mysteries and hidden compromises that come after many decades of struggle and sacrifice.
I don't think our stand has changed. We still stand firmly, but we don't have anything against the military, if you mean the military in terms of men in uniform.
Kin Toon, the former bodyguard, hoped to reconnect with Aung San Suu Kyi to reminisce about their days together in Rangoon, but the meeting wasn't to be.
I want to say it is not sacrifice. It is only my choice. We never say sacrifice. That is for our choice to our country. We can accept the result for our choice.
Aung San Suu Kyi has long been the heroine of the Myanmarese people, but the question now is whether the halls of Naypyidaw will swallow the democracy icon up, and along with her, the hopes of a nation.
That film by Cyril Payen, who is still with us in the studio. Cyril, great insight as usual. And interesting, back in 2013, you could see perhaps the cracks beginning to show in what was happening in Myanmar even then. Let's start by talking about Aung San Suu Kyi, under house arrest for so many years, under house arrest again. What's the latest on her?
Well, we don't have much information. It's just through the lawyer. She's just back to square one, as you said. She's arrested, and the very Orwellian military government is pushing a lot by charging her every time we have a glimpse of her by new charges, crazy charges like owning a walkie-talkie or some meteorological charges. So the basic idea, we guess, is like she will never be free again, and the army is just trying to destroy the pro-democracy machine she built, the National League for Democracy, a party, just to maybe make some new elections, maybe someday in a few years, we'll say, and to be just in a line to be elected as a proper government. But they just want to destroy her, and she maybe fell in the trap of, paradoxally, to push them too much, but also to have been compromising too much with them in a way.
She seemed to spend a lot of the film trying to avoid your questions rather than standing and talking to you. And I think that maybe said that even she knew if she said the things perhaps that you would make her say, it would have caused many problems. But people are still demonstrating. What's the future for the people of Myanmar? Do you feel there is some kind of optimism there, or do you feel it is basically something which will go from bad to worse?
It's amazing, like this Z generation in 10 years of this democratic sequence, as we say, just grabbed everything they could extremely smartly about globalization, the social networks, and also this resilience from youngsters we can see here, 18, 19, 20 years. I know some students we were in political science in Rangoon, which a future I were on the bright future. We just joined the ethnic minority areas in a jungle just to learn how to fight, how to organize themselves. And despite the hundreds of people massacred by the army, the movement just go on. Amazingly, and for the first time, and I've been working on this movement for many years now, I feel very sad and also quite optimistic about this new generation. We will never give up what they have been given for 10 years, democracy.
And just say the name of your producer who's in prison now, one last time.
Aung San Suu Kyi, which is in jail now and has been tortured just because he's a journalist. There are 70 Burmese journalists in jail now in Myanmar.
Cyril Pai, thank you very much indeed. You can see Cyril's report again via our website, France24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.